Go.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Blue Sunday here on this delightful Sunday here in Melbourne. I don't know if you got out and about, gentlemen, but it was certainly a lovely day to experience a nice afternoon. Welcome to Steve Katib and to Chris Beach, as usual, in the control room. How are you, Beachy?
Good, thank you, Vince.
I understand you spent most of the afternoon playing one of your favourite sports.
Someone did double duty this weekend, so we might be touching on that a little bit later, potentially tonight, Vince, because there's a bit to talk about in the cricketing world lately.
Yes, there certainly is a fair bit to talk about. In fact, our debate topic tonight will not be about Australian rules football, but it will, in fact, centre around the now former Australian captain of the Australian cricket team. But Steve, how did you spend your day today, mate? You there, Steve? Can you hear me, Steve?
Steve, you're
Hello,
okay?
Stephen. Steve.
And
is he frozen?
Sorry, we're having some audio issues there.
Oh, you're not. You can't hear me. I was just saying, how did you spend most of your Sunday today, Steve?
Oh no, just doing jobs around the house, all those sorts of things. Nothing exciting. Catching a little bit of sport if I could. Very
good. Well, gentlemen, before we start reporting on the various, favourite summer sports like cricket and tennis and golf and that sort of thing, let's get into the topic of the week, which of course saw Australian Test cricket captain Tim Paine hand in his resignation during the week due to I think they call it a sexting scandal, don't they, these days? Text messaging, some, lewd messages between him and a young lady about, I think it must have been about over 4 years ago now. But it's come back to haunt him and it's cost him his job as the Australian captain. What do you make of it?
From my understanding, Vince, this was a conversation that happened, as you said, 4 years ago. Investigations were taking place. They cleared him of any wrongdoing. However, it is my understanding that it was about to become public again from her side. Unfortunately, it's come down to this very quickly, and we haven't really had much of a fallout from that since then. But unfortunately, when you're in the spotlight as the Australian cricket team captain, doesn't matter what format, you're usually going to get the spotlight on you pretty quickly. And unfortunately, that's what happens. That's what's happened to Tim Paine.
I do shake my head at these guys and wonder what goes through their minds when they get involved in something like this. I mean, everyone makes mistakes, but geez, what makes them think that they're so bulletproof that something like this is not going to eventually surface or rear its ugly head, either in the short, medium, or long term? But obviously, Tim Paine realised the errors of his ways, and he was smart enough to immediately, apparently, own up to everything to his wife and tell her the whole story. But nevertheless, for some reason, this has reared its head and it was going to go public. And before it did go public, he decided to get in first. What did you think, Steve? What did you make of the whole thing?
Yeah, I don't for one moment, condone what occurred with Tim Paine. I think the story here is not Tim Paine. I generally believe the story is the administration of Cricket Australia and the board. I think the fact that they investigated this, there was no case to answer. Well, if there's no case to answer in this situation,
yeah.
Absolutely. Number one. Number two, are they the standards that they want to live by if there is no case to answer? Because it seems pretty black and white and straightforward, doesn't it, to me? And then on the third point, this is all occurring at the same time as the sandpaper fiasco as well. So cricket had a bad name. Its brand was being, dragged through the mud. And the last thing they wanted to do was have another captain essentially have a press conference in tears and resign. Yeah. I mean, this is a look. There's a couple of things. It's the board, but then it's the culture. Now, the board did the big investigation at the time into the culture of the Australian cricket team and the sporting conduct or the win at all costs type of whatever it takes mindset. They should have just come clean with everything. You know, there was a very poor period of governance in Cricket Australia, and this just is another piece of that. As I say, though, not condoning what Tim Paine's done, but so many things from an administrative and a board level just do not add up. Now, we do have a different administration now. You know, the roles have changed hands at board level and at CEO level, but at the same time, it's very, very disturbing for mine.
All right, I'm glad we've still got some sort of understanding about this. I'm just going to bring in Goz for a quick second, get his thoughts on this, because he's been waiting in the waiting room for a little while. Goz, have you got any thoughts on the Tim Paine scandal that's just happened recently in the cricketing world?
Hey, fellas, how are you all? Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not a cricket buff, so I'm going to leave it up to the professionals because I see the absolute passion in the librarian's eyes when he talks about cricket. So I can't compare to that. I'll come back later on if you wish to talk about the NBA and my beloved LA Lakers. But yeah, it's been you know, AFL aside, it's been a pretty topsy-turvy week in sports, in Australian sports at the moment. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it certainly has, Goz, and we'll certainly be trying to keep an eye on maybe some of those as we go. Not a problem.
All right,
Goz.
fair enough.
Cool.
Well, that was short and sweet if I ever saw it. Oh my goodness,
that's the shortest I've seen it in a long time.
You might want to check with whoever's coming on that they actually want to talk about the topic.
Well, you know, he'd been sitting there for a while, so I thought.
As a matter of fact, any of our viewers that want to come on, maybe you can put the link up, BT, and you know, if anyone wants to come on and express their opinion and do it in an informative way and actually add to the discussion, that would be welcome. But Steve, I think we've seen this sort of thing before with Shane Warne. He got involved in a number of these types of incidents when he was playing for the Australian cricket team. Do you think that there's one rule for a certain type of player and another rule for another type of player? I mean, we talked about this a little bit with AFL. You know, everyone's equal, but as the saying goes, some people are more equal than others.
Yeah, it's obviously, you know, Tim Paine was. If it was a fringe player that was a fringe contracted player, maybe this would have been looked at differently.
Maybe.
But yeah, the Australian captain of the Australian cricket team, since I was knee high to a grasshopper, was held, and I'm sure you too, Vince.
Yeah.
Was held in the absolute highest regards of sporting.
In a lot of people's eyes, it was the second most respected position in the country behind the Prime Minister.
Absolutely. You were doing all sorts of commercials. You were, you know, you was essentially representing the country almost as a diplomat type when you were going on the party tours, where you were going to the touring parties, whichever country that they were going to all over the world. You were known to be of absolute good standing and have an informed worldview of things. Be able to speak to all different people from different continents, walks of life. It was a big role. Now that element, I think, is sort of been lost of the Australian cricket captain, and essentially you're just a good player that can play cricket. But
bit of a shame, isn't it? I mean, you're almost an ambassador for the country when you're the Australian Test cricket captain. Well, you certainly used to be. I'm not sure it's the same these days, but I think it still does retain a certain level of prestige about it. And look, I personally think Tim Payne did a very admirable job to come in when he did, when Steve Smith and David Warner were basically suspended from being able to play for, how long was it? 12, 18 months, something like that?
No, I mean, 9 to 12 months.
Mm. And I think Tim Payne's come in and done a pretty good job of it. If you have a look at his record since taking over, I think he did a pretty good job. If you have a look at the record of the Australian team under his captaincy, and he certainly seemed to give it a level of stability. And I think it's a shame that his captaincy's had to come to an end under such controversial circumstances. But these players, again, they a bit like AFL football, Steve, they tend to live in a bubble and they think that they're bulletproof, a lot of them, and that they can do anything, say anything, and get away with anything. And all of a sudden, when they don't, the reality of the situation hits them right between the eyes.
Absolutely, Vince. But the interesting part about this situation is he will still be playing, or he will still be eligible to play for Australia if he is selected. So essentially, he's just stepped down from his role as captain. How he will play, and we've since Friday we've all probably heard the type of locker room jokes that will be probably presented to him. Or if you haven't, you don't need to imagine too much of the types of jokes that will be presented to him when he goes out to bat.
I'm sure it's not a bit over the fence.
And I'm just talking about the players here, let alone the Barmy Army or any other. I
think the Barmy Army might be hopping into him a bit. I think they might actually idolise him as a role model.
They've got no shortage of material, have they? Now they've got Steve Smith, Michael Warner. That's the gift that keeps giving them. Oh, sorry, not Michael Warner. David Warner. Sorry, not Michael Warner.
Yeah, hello, journalist. Michael Warner from the Herald
Sun. If you're listening out there, good book, The Boys Club. David Warner, and of course now you've got Tim Payne. They have no shortage of material. Not that their players are absolute clean skins themselves, but still, it's going to be funny, isn't it?
It certainly will be. And look, let's go beyond the decision now. And I guess the next big decision is who's going to take over. Pat Cummins is being touted as the replacement. The first test. I mean, this couldn't have happened at a worse time in terms of, being on the eve of an Ashes series. But to some extent, it's going to unsettle the team a little because they wouldn't have expected to have a totally new captain. But the one they're talking about is Pat Cummins. Are you surprised by that? Do you think they should go with him, seeing he was going to be the vice captain? Or do you think they should have gone back to maybe Steve Smith or potentially someone else? Who would you have chosen to take over?
You're asking me, Vince?
Yeah.
Well, if Steve Smith's earned his, he's done his time and so forth, I think maybe he would be the person that it's harder to have a fast bowler and Beachy, you're more of a cricket aficionado than I. Don't get me wrong. I know enough to know that there's lots that I don't know. But it's hard to have a fast bowler as a captain for mine. I think you need to have someone that's in that fielding position or in that more in the batting role to make those decisions on field placements and all the other strategic elements. But that's just my view.
No.
What do you think, Beatty? Who would you have?
Well, I would say, give it to Cummins. Let's give it a crack. I mean, I'd like to point out he's the captain of the New South Wales state side when he plays, and he seems to have done okay there. Now, does that rule out Smith entirely? No. He probably should be vice captain again because he needs to earn the trust of the Australian people because as everybody will know, he was the captain during that full tampering scandal with the sandpaper in South Africa, and Warner was vice captain as well. Now, that doesn't rule them out completely, but I think we need to at least have a look at him to see what he can do. If he's not up to it, then we can consider Steve Smith again.
So you
but Beachy, this isn't just a stopgap captain. This needs to be someone for the next 4 or 5 years. We need some stability. You can't just go changing captains every 1 or 2 years here. They need to be certain that this decision that they're going to make for the captaincy is the right one, and they need to really continue to build that leadership and all those cultural values led by the captain. I think it's really important that they get that right.
Who are the other candidates, do you think, that should be in the if you like the short list of candidates? Obviously, we're talking Pat Cummins as a bowler, Steve Smith as a former captain. Are there any other players in the squad that you think should be considered for the captaincy? Either one of you, if you want to speak up, by all means.
No.
I'm just trying to think.
No, I can't see.
You don't think that there's any other players in the squad?
Some might say Marnus Labuschagne, but he hasn't been around long enough. He hasn't been around long enough to earn that captaincy role, let alone a vice captaincy role.
Yeah.
You might give it to Wade potentially, but then again, you don't know how long he's got left in his career.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the two standouts at the moment are Cummins and Smith.
Yeah. Yep. So go through the order, Beachy. Who would you have as the top 6? I mean, Payne probably comes in at 7, and then you've got the 4 bowlers. But you've got Warner up the top there of the order, and who's he opening the batting with?
Probably Khawaja, based on his current form. He's been making hundreds for Queensland. Yeah, that should at least get him some sort of attention to potentially be playing at back at Australian level. The first test usually up in Brisbane, so a good chance to shine in front of his home crowd.
Yeah.
3 and 4 are locked away in Smith and Labuschagne. That's usually pretty quickly sorted. They're probably one of the first 2 you'd pick normally.
Yeah.
5th spot. Does that go to someone like a Cameron Green, or does Cameron Green go in at 6? Then you've got to ask yourself, where does Wade go? Because if Payne's coming in at 7, do you put Wade in at 5?
Yeah. Well, it looks like Payne's going to keep his spot as the wicket keeper, so Wade's probably going to bat at 5 or 6, I imagine.
Yep.
Say Wade at 5 and young Cameron Green from WA at 6. I don't think there's too many other candidates, really. I mean, really, it's got to come down to Smith and or Warner. I mean, I'd be staggered if they go for Warner ahead of Smith. If they're going to give it to one of the two, they've got to go with Smith, surely.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
My personal view is that Steve Smith is the one to go. I'd go back to him. He's a master batsman. He's led the team before. The whole sandpaper thing, I think, as Steve said, they've both done their time and for the crime that they committed, and I think they should be considered now for any position like this. Obviously, the Australian selectors have thought best to go with who was nominated to be the vice captain. I actually was a bit surprised that Pat Cummins was vice captain. I thought that they probably should have gone back to Smith as that sort of person anyway. But anyway, it looks like they're going to go with Cummins, and as you said, Beachy, they'll run with him unless he stuffs it up or unless they have a dramatic Ashes loss on home soil. They'll probably keep running with him for a while yet.
Yeah, the only way I reckon is probably going to lose it is if we lose 5-0 on home soil, which would probably be the ultimate disgrace, if you ask me.
That's
But
for
anyway,
sure.
that's just me thinking. That's me
Yes,
thinking.
well, anyway, it'll be interesting to see what transpires there. It's looking like a very interesting Ashes series coming up. I think England have got a big chance, actually, to roll us. You know, the number one test team in the world now, strangely enough, is New Zealand.
Yep.
And I don't think Australia's any I think they probably would just go in favourites because it's on home soil, but wouldn't surprise me in the least if England rolled us. They've got some very good players in that test team.
Exactly. And with Stokes coming out now after not originally being part of the touring squad, it's now made it very more interesting because you've still got the likes of Anderson and Broad still running around for them, and they're usually their front two bowlers.
Yeah. Well, just to finish up on our debate topic, let's go back in time a little bit and reminisce on some other similar incidents that have gotten players into trouble over the years. Can you recall some others? I can certainly recall a few Carlton players that have gotten into trouble over the years.
Well,
none less than
this,
Brendan Favola at the Brownlow Medal of 2009.
Well, relating to this specific incident, Jonathan Patton would be probably the most recent, mirror type of image of it occurring, albeit I believe this only occurred in one case with Tim Payne. With Jonathan Patton's was a lot more widespread. But I think a lot of the incidents are not digital. Now they're becoming more digital incidents. Previously, they were more out at a night spot or in the wrong place at the wrong time, whereas now it's all about the use of your phone and people being messaged.
Technology has not exactly been their best friend, has it?
No, not at all.
So Jonathan Patton, of course, yes, and he's basically retired from the game now, a former number one draft pick from GWS, eventually went to Hawthorn and hardly played too many games there.
No.
Any other incidents before that you can recall?
One that was probably within the last couple of years, not digital, but in a COVID-type environment. Steele Sidebottom took a wrong turn and the copper pulled him up and said, "Hang on, what are you doing out this late? Come with me." I get exactly what it was, but it was during the COVID time. He was gone to the bathroom and he's walked out and the copper's seen him after God knows what, and he got himself into trouble there.
Yeah, that's hardly what you'd call a hangable offence, though, isn't it, Beachy? Really?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm talking more about the Rat Pack incidents at Collingwood involving Heath Shaw and all of those boys that were out late at night.
Those scandals had it was all about what the club knew and how they were finding out their information, and then it was all about the damage control over the coming days and weeks, and how clean the players came originally.
Yeah.
And what witnesses then put their hand up to certain situations as well. Oh, they're a CEO's worst nightmare.
I remember a few years ago there were a couple of Carlton players called Mitch Robinson and Jeff Garlett who were out late at night and apparently came to training with black eyes and all sorts of scratches and bruises and God, you name it.
Yeah,
they initially told a whole heap of fibs about what caused them to have all of these injuries and what have you on their face. And eventually it came back to the club that, in fact, they had been out drinking that previous night and got themselves into a few skirmishes at a pub somewhere at 3 or 4 in the morning. And that prompted the club to put them on the market. And Mitch Robinson was traded to Brisbane. And Jeff Garlett was traded to Melbourne. And So a lot of people think that they shouldn't have been. So what's your view on these sorts of things, guys? Do you think when players muck up like that we should send a message to the rest of the team and the rest of the squad and say this is unacceptable and it's going to cost you your spot on our list and we'll trade you or delist you? Or do you think we should be forgiving of this sort of thing and keep those sorts of players on the list? Because Mitch Robinson has, let's admit it, he's gone on to bigger and better things at Brisbane in the last 7 years, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think the Mitch Robinson decision was the right one, regardless of how he's obviously improved his football from a matter of principle. I think that that is the right decision. Also, whether the penny dropped with him when he did leave Carlton, and that helped him improve his football, and maybe another environment, different coaches also helped him improve his football. So I don't think it's as straightforward as just saying if we'd kept Mitch Robinson, he would have been, he would have played the same football he played at Brisbane.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a great question, and you mentioned it earlier, Vince. The luxury of a player with huge raps on them to be able to potentially get through a situation, an awkward situation, whereas a fringe player doesn't have that luxury. And also, what message then are you sending to that fringe player if a senior player can get away with it? So it's a fine line. It's a horses for courses. But then the modern AFL world of give the players a cuddle sort of world that we know is all about we're all human. We all make mistakes. It's okay. We'll put our arms, Damien Hardwick, we'll put our arms around them and, all that sort of, and we'll bring them, we'll look after them and we'll rehabilitate them.
Yeah.
The fine line is when do you stop rehabilitating them and cut them loose, right? That's a tough one.
Yeah. How many times can Brendan Favola muck up before you finally say enough's enough? He was, in the case of Brendan Favola, given an ultimatum. One more incident that is caused by an alcohol-related, set of circumstances, and that's it. You're gone. And what happened? He did what he did at the Brownlow, and that was the end of his career at Carlton.
But Vince, let's be honest. Channel 9 essentially gave him all the rope he needed to hang himself, didn't they?
Sure.
Really. I mean, you got the microphone, the Brownlow medal, all you can drink. It wasn't good recipe.
He wasn't just a kid. He was 28 at the time.
Well, okay. Do you think? I don't listen to these shows, but do you think you'd have all these? I see the billboards as I drive around town. Do you think you'd have all these radio jobs now if all of these things hadn't have happened to him? It almost the legend grows, doesn't it? It's almost
question, isn't it? Yeah.
the lovable rogue. If he just played football and was a, dead-eye dick, kick for goal as he was, and
there's a little bit of the bad boy that everyone loves.
Yeah,
I think that's what
absolutely. The boy from Beaconsfield. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Beachy, have you had a blackout down there in Kew or wherever you live?
No. I'm just going to turn some lights on while we take care of that. I was just listening to this conversation.
Okay, that's all right. I just thought, geez, it's a little bit dark down there in the library. I thought maybe you'd want to go and whack a light on there.
And another one for you, Vince, and I think this is probably the biggest one, is the Ben Cousins situation. I mean, that would be the biggest one.
Well, that's right. Yeah, no, the Ben Cousins one, I think, it's a sad state of affairs with him. I mean, he, I don't think you could criticise West Coast too much as to how they handled that situation.
No, it's more.
It's about a Brownlow medalist. It clearly has a drug problem. the irony of that whole situation was that it was known and admitted to that he had a drug problem and all this sort of thing. He never tested positive to an AFL drug test.
No. But I'm coming at that.
What does that say about the AFL drug testing regime?
He was pretty smart.
They don't really want to catch these guys.
But Vince, I think there's a couple of points in the Ben Cousins thing beyond just his issues. West Coast Eagles turned a blind eye from a cultural point of view to him because he was such a good player. Yep. Although they say they didn't know, surely it was he was associating with a lot of shall we say controversial figures in the Perth community, and they were all, there was quite a lot of things going on there. But because he was playing so well on game day, it was just let's turn a blind eye. And then the second point to the Ben Cousins is, at what point does a player redeem his or herself from these issues and then come out the other side rehabilitated, and they're a good example for society? Which is kind of like the Steve Smith thing that we're talking about now. So Ben Cousins essentially, it turned a lot of heads that he actually attended the Brownlow. Of course, he's potentially entitled to as a former Brownlow medalist himself, and how he was accepted to come back. But then there's the other side to that story as well. He's rehabilitated himself and should attend. So it's a difficult one.
Yeah, that's probably the most controversial one in the last 20 years or so, the Ben Cousins, situation. But, eventually given another chance at another club like Richmond. I think he only lasted a couple of years there, didn't he? A couple of years at the most. Yeah. Didn't really go anywhere. I'll never forget the first game that he played for Richmond against Carlton in round one of 2000 and I think it was 2009.
Nine.
Yeah, and
that would have been the last time we beat them, I think, in round one.
No, not quite. No, 2012 was the last time we beat them. But that particular game, within I think a few minutes of the start, Ben Cousins went off with a pulled hamstring. I think he tore his hamstring within 10 minutes or so. But anyway, Chris Judd was playing for us, and Ben Cousins was playing for Richmond, and the two of them used to be in West Coast jumpers on the last day in September of 2006, and they were holding the cup up together. One as the captain of the day and one as the former captain, because if you remember, he was relieved of his captaincy during that year.
He was the spiritual leader, though, always, wasn't he? He was referred to as that spiritual leader. Yeah,
very much so. Other player incidents that we've heard about over the years of this sort of nature that Tim Payne's going through. Oh, geez. I think you'd probably have to go back to the incidents of Stephen Milne and young Montagna from St Kilda. Got mixed up with a couple of ladies in an incident where they were accused of rape. In fact,
nothing was proven there. Obviously the worn text messages, albeit. I don't know if mobile phones back.
I don't think Vaughan can deny it or wants to deny it. I think he's quite happy to admit to the text messages that he sent those young ladies.
I don't know if you could send photos back then, but you could certainly text. I'm not sure what type of phone he had. But
well, I think you'll find that he even sent videos around of himself to people. But anyway, look, Warney obviously liked to party when he went on tour, thinking that what goes on tour stays on tour, but it doesn't quite work out that way with modern technology these days. He might have got away with it back in the 1960s and 70s, but no, not in the last 25 years.
Just in the wrong era. He's just a player in the wrong era for himself.
Exactly right. Anyway, I guess we could go back, into other eras, but I think we've covered the main ones. The message is, these days, if you muck up like that, you start getting involved in a text messaging exchange with someone. You know, if it's not something that you're comfortable, I think the message should be: if it's not something you'd like on the front page of the Herald Sun, don't send it.
Vince, what about this is a more recent one, and it's not so much about the jockey regarding the COVID breaches and essentially missing the whole carnival.
Jamie Carr.
Jamie Carr, yeah, absolutely. Now, that's like
well, during the week she had that that suspension reduced somewhat. She'll be back riding within the next week or two. Yeah.
But you missed the spring carnival. That's like essentially a player missing the grand final, right?
Huge pay cut for her. Yeah.
Yeah, but just the opportunity to race, especially if you're of her caliber.
Well, we had a comment up there, Beachy.
Yeah, it was Lana Owens on YouTube. Good evening to you, Lana. She was
Lana.
touching on Warnie is a bit of the old pot, calling the kettle black at the moment.
Yeah, well, he could probably run a class on what to do, what not to do, and what not to get caught doing. Based on his own experience.
Seminars on that, Vince, I reckon.
He should be brought in for a special lesson for all of the Australian cricketers on what to do, what not to do, and if you're going to do certain things that you're not meant to do, how to get away with doing it.
Remember the media parked out the side of his house after the diuretics scandal?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that was going on for months, wasn't it? All of that. Oh, gee. And I think his mum gave him allegedly, right? His mum.
Yeah, my mum gave me this diuretic. Yeah, righto. Yeah, Warnie used to bring his own tins of baked beans with him over to places like India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, must have been part of his dietary requirements at the time. But let's hope that the Australian team can perform well during this summer and give us something to cheer for. All right, guys. I think that's probably enough there. I don't know if there's any other comments or questions that people might have of us. But in the meantime, send those comments in if you like. Beachy, it's been a big week in cricket. Apart from the Tim Payne scandal, what else can you tell us about the world of cricket for this last 7 days?
So, but when we had our last show, we were getting ready for the 2020 World Cup final, which was taking place the following morning at 1:00.
Yes.
Well, that's turned out to be a great result for the Australians, beating the Kiwis once again on a stage where it pretty much counts the most. The Kiwis were very quick. The Kiwis are very quick to get the runs on the board, but to cut a long story short, ladies and gentlemen, the Aussies chased it down, 2 wickets down, and the highlights for that were Kane Williamson scoring 80-odd in his innings for the Kiwis after being dropped on 21. Thankfully, that didn't quite come back to bite us, but nonetheless, that came back to bite us now. Followed by Mitch Marsh being there at the end with Glenn Maxwell pretty much winning it for us off the bat and showing very, very aggressive intent for the Australians to take out the trophy. A great stat for everybody to know that you may or may not want to know, but anyway, I'm going to tell you anyway. Out of the last 13 games played at Dubai, 12 of those times has the team batted second gone on to win. So that's a very impressive stat there, and was a very good cost to lose for the Australians there, Vince, as we found out that the Kiwis had won it. No, sorry, as we won it and sent them in. As we know at the moment, there was a bit of a scare at the Sheffield Shield up in Sydney with a test that needed to get further analysed of Will Sutherland's.
Yep.
We're currently playing them up at the SCG at the moment, and there wasn't any
play today due to rain.
Yeah.
Yep. But after scoring after New South Wales batted first and was all out for 233, Victoria set 3 for 68 with day 3 happening tomorrow. Hopefully we can get something done there.
I'll tell you what, Beachy, that's 3 for 68 is not a bad result for Victoria by the end of stumps last night, because they actually lost their first 3 wickets for only 2 runs on the board.
Yeah, and they were all.
In fact, they lost their first 2 wickets. They lost their first 2 wickets without a score on the board at all. And then they got 2 runs, their first 2 runs of the innings, and then lost another wicket. So 3 wickets down for only 2 runs on the scoreboard must have been looking really sick at that stage. So to recover to 3 for 68 and now, 165 runs behind New South Wales is a lot more respectable, and gives the Victorians a bit of a chance of overcoming their first innings total.
Yep, we had day 1 at in Tasmania. So the Tassie Tigers were playing WA. Stumps there, WA 6 for 350. Now that is a great result for the WA batters, as we are probably supposed to say now. But anyway, cut a long story short, the top scorers out of that at the moment, and it must be a complete batting deck in Hobart at the moment, because Sam Whiteman is on 151 not outs at the end of day 1, well supported by Josh Philippi, who was out for 53, Darcy Short out for 67, and John Richardson is with Whiteman at the moment on 43 not out. That is a complete and utter domination by the WA side going into day 2. And at the moment, there is a test going on in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka set 2 for 165 against the West Indies in Galle at the moment. So that's going on as we speak.
Yep. That's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, the Australians winning the T20 World Cup was a fantastic result. That's our first ever T20 World Cup victory. It was the only one that we'd never won. And to have come out on top over the New Zealanders, who I thought were pretty competitive. They looked like a pretty competitive list of players and very skilled at the short form of the game. I think the way we won was excellent and showed a lot of maturity, and we just always held sway for most of that match, I thought.
Yeah, we did. You could say Mitchell Starc had an absolute stinker against the Kiwis, but
yeah, he did.
Nonetheless, it doesn't take one bowler to turn a game. There are other bowlers there, and fortunately, Joshy Hazlewood did the damage there when required. So we were pretty happy with that.
Yep. No, great result. Well done to Aaron Finch and the rest of the T20 squad. Yeah. We've also got the end of the women's Big Bash League, the WBBL. Just basically came to an end today as far as the round robin type matches. I think they all have played their 14 matches each now, haven't they?
That is correct. Yes.
So who are the teams that have made the top 4 positions and will therefore make the finals?
So we have an eliminator this week. That is between the Brisbane Heat and Adelaide Strikers. That will take place at the Adelaide Oval. That's on the 24th at 7:10. They will then, and then we have the top 2 sides who are awaiting their opponents at the moment. So the winner of Brisbane and Adelaide will face the Melbourne Renegades the following day on the 25th. And then whoever wins the challenger will then be off to Perth to face the Scorchers.
So Perth Scorchers finished on top. Melbourne Renegades finished 2nd. Brisbane Heat 3rd and Adelaide Strikers 4th. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
So they're the 4 teams that are going to play off in the final series starting on the 24th. So that's coming up in 3 days' time. The first final.
Yep. First finals, 3 days' time.
Should be great. I'll tell you the
Oval.
one big surprise, Beachy, for mine out of the women's teams was the team that finished last, which was the Sydney Sixers. I mean, they've got players such as, Elise Perry and Alyssa Healy. These are top class women's, players who play for Australia. And I would have thought that they would have had all of the talent in the world to finish in the top four. But what's happened to that side this year?
Your guess is as good as mine, Vince. I like you. I was very surprised because as you said, there's Perry playing for them, there's Healy playing for them, there's Ash Gardner playing for them as well.
Gardner as well.
There's 3 Aussies that. Now, you could say losing Dane van Niekerk, who is a South African international, along as Marizanne Kapp, who's also South African, to different sides, has not helped.
Yeah.
Dane van Niekerk has gone to the Adelaide Strikers, who are playing later this week, and Marizanne Kapp went over to the Scorchers as well.
It looks to me like the Sydney Sixers have got that classic syndrome of having a team of champions rather than a champion team, because they certainly haven't been able to put it together as a team this year. They look very disjointed and uninspiring.
Yeah. Although, if you look at the Sydney Thunder too, they had the likes of Rachel Haynes playing for them, who wasn't playing for them this tournament.
Yeah.
And all these girls that have come in from India or whatever, they haven't done all that well themselves.
Well, they finished second last.
Yeah, they did.
So the two teams with arguably the most talented players in them and the most well-credentialed players have ended up coming last and second last. So it just goes to show you that you need to build a lot more than around your team than just bringing in a couple of players with star quality and just throwing them in there and hoping that it'll all just click. Teams have a lot more. Teams that have a lot more synergy between the players will overcome a team like the Sydney Sixers or the Sydney Thunder, who have a sprinkling of star-studded players that don't necessarily gel with the rest of the team.
Exactly right. I mean, you look at the likes of the Perth Scorchers, Sophie Devine from New Zealand, Beth Mooney from Australia, who spent probably quite a bit of time in the BBL, but nonetheless, she's an Aussie. That's a pretty dominant top 2 straight away. That's been a combination for them that's been going quite consistent for them. And look where it's got them. It's got them at home final in the later of the tournament.
So what's the date of the eventual final? I mean, it's starting this week, the 24th, but it will go on beyond next weekend, won't it?
It's going to be the 27th.
So that is the final.
That's the final.
So the Perth Scorchers are going straight into the final just purely for finishing first.
Yep.
Okay. That's interesting.
And that's the start time there is 7:10 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. So
okay.
That's
only 4:10 in Perth, so it'll still be a nice sunny day by the time they start.
Everybody check your local guides for that, those that are able to watch or have some sort of interest in it, as they say.
Terrific, Chris. So let's move on to the test team. We've just talked about Tim Payne, but let's talk about the squad that was announced, the 15-man squad. What did you make of the introductions of Richardson and Kawaja?
No surprises for me. They've been the form players for their states.
Yeah.
We also had an Australia A squad listed as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that, because Scott Boland for Victoria has been the form bowler for Victoria there, and has found himself in the Australia A squad with some tour matches potentially coming up later.
Yeah.
So that's just to keep your eyes on for sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll certainly have to do that. I like the inclusion of Richardson from WA. I think he's got the potential of being a really good bowler, hasn't he?
Yeah, he does. And he's played for Australia before, and then he just broke down with injury, which unfortunately seems to happen with a lot of these fast bowlers.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we approach the 8th of December, which is the day one of the first test, we'll certainly discuss the Ashes team and our prospects a little bit more as we approach the first test. All righty. What do we want to go to next? Do we want to cover a bit of the Spring Carnival?
Yeah, I think we'll cover the Spring Carnival.
I know that's Steve's favourite topic every week.
We've had the Country Cups, haven't we?
Well, hang on. I'm going to talk about the thoroughbreds. Yeah, well, we had
That's the Trotters.
We had the Ballarat Cup. We had the Ballarat Cup yesterday in the thoroughbreds. A listed race over 2,000 metres, which is essentially the same distance as the Cox Plate. And it was won by a horse called Zaydani. Number 6 came out of gate 1. So the number 1 barrier is obviously a good one at Ballarat. And it was ridden by young Luke Nolan, who's not as young as he used to be. Do you remember which famous horse he used to ride?
Black Caviar.
Black Caviar, indeed. Yes. So he was the winning jockey. Ben Hayes, son of David Hayes, is the trainer, and paid $11 on fixed odds with $3.20 the place. Not quite as generous on the tote, $8.40 for the win and $2.90 for the place, but still nice, generous, juicy each way odds if you were on the 6.
Absolutely.
Zaydani, one from number 1 Yonkers, the top weight with Damien Oliver on board for Chris Waller, the Melbourne Cup winning trainer. It paid a nice juicy price for the place too, I might add. $5.70 on the tote, $6 fixed odds. And number 9, Vanna Girl, ridden by Zach Spain, who does most of his riding overseas these days. And that paid $5 fixed or $5.70 on the tote. So certainly a race where you would have wanted to go wide in terms of getting your multiples, because your trifecta paid over $3,000 and the first 4 paid over $10,500. So if you got that, you were doing well. But certainly the favourites all went missing. The favourite for the race actually finished 4th, number 11. Thought of that. And so 6, 1, 9, and 11. If you had that, $10,500, Steve, straight into the bank account, my friend.
Oi.
So that's the Ballarat Cup for this year. Next week is the Zipping Classic, the Sandown Cup, and it's all being held at Caulfield. And that will be the last weekend of the Spring Carnival. So next week's show will be our last week of covering thoroughbred racing for a while, I would have thought.
Just quickly, Vince, what's happening at Sandown that they've caused it to move it to Caulfield?
It's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I think the Melbourne Racing Club, which actually sort of governs, if you like, both tracks, made the decision to bring it to Caulfield.
There is some discussion, Vince, about some work being done there as well.
Yeah.
They've got the 2 tracks there, and the future of actually that whole Sandown precinct. There's a lot of talk on that. I'm not sure if anything had been settled yet, but there was a lot of talk. Developing race tracks. We talked about Moonee Valley the other week. You look at the old Pakenham track now. It's at Cooey Rup.
Yeah.
And Pakenham's got houses around it. The land's so valuable, isn't it?
Well, Steve, very close to where I live, in the northwestern suburbs, around Essendon and Moonee Ponds, we have a track called Moonee Valley, and it's going to undertake a massive change. The winning post is going to shift positions. The whole track's going to be revamped. The buildings are all going to be torn down and rebuilt over a totally different section of the track. There's a housing development going up there. It's all happening at Moonee Valley. I'll tell you one thing: the views will be spectacular. Because if you've ever been in the grandstand at Moonee Valley, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
especially at night, the views of the city, just breathtaking.
You could lose your money, but still get a good view doing
exactly,
it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a summary of thoroughbred racing from yesterday and a preview of what's coming up. Harness racing. Well, we had the big night last night. Of course, the whole range of finals of the Breeders' Crown. And these are, of course, for the younger horses, the 2-year-old colts and geldings, the 2-year-old fillies, 3-year-old colts and geldings, and 3-year-old fillies. Those 4 races alone, total prize money of $1 million. So the 2-year-old races were $300,000 each. And the 2 3-year-old races were $200,000 each. There was also a whole range of other finals for the trotters, 2-year-old colts and geldings again, and the fillies, and the 3-year-old colts and geldings and fillies finals. So all of those races were, essentially Group 1s and Group 2s. So it's a huge night in the calendar. No race there last night was under $50,000 in prize money, which is significant in harness racing. So there were a whole range of great finals. I won't go into them now, but there's one horse I want to specifically point out that I think is going to be an absolute star in harness racing, and it was in the 3-year-old fillies final, and it's called Ladies in Red. So keep your eyes on that one. And if you ever see it starting in a race, you'll probably have to take fairly skinny odds from now on. It was pretty juicy last night at $2.30 because it started on the second row. So it paid $2.30, but it still won the race. But I think this horse is going to be something really, really special. So anyway, that sums up the week in harness racing. There weren't any country cups as such during the week. And there won't be for a couple of weeks, but the Breeders' Crown is always a big night on the harness racing calendar.
Very nice, very nice. Steve,
and of course, we've got. Sorry, I should point out. Next Saturday night is the first heats of the Inter-Dominion. So on Saturday the 27th, this year it's being held in New South Wales. So the first round of heats is Saturday night on the 27th at Menangle. Then the following, I think it's the following Wednesday, so only 4 days later, there's another round of heats in Bathurst. And then another 4 days later on the Sunday, the 5th of December, will be the final round of heats at Newcastle. So Menangle, Bathurst, Newcastle, and they have a point system that's awarded to each horse based on where they finish in each of the heats. And so the top 12 point getters will start off in the final at Menangle. So and that will be the final on the Saturday, the 11th of December. So next Sunday, I'll report to you on the first round of heats that would have happened 24 hours earlier at Menangle.
Fantastic. And just for those that don't quite know, where is Menangle Racecourse?
Southwest Sydney.
A little bit like Melton is to Melbourne now. It's a good 3/4 of an hour's drive west of Sydney.
Oh, that's with no traffic. That's with no traffic, Vince. Yeah. Right. So if you're driving from Melbourne to Sydney, before you hit the city limits, if you like, on your left-hand side is Menangle. So sort of Campbell, just before you hit Campbelltown, Camden Way, that's where it is.
Right.
If you're ever heading out that way, Beachy, make sure you're wearing a bulletproof vest, okay?
Righto, good to know.
Now remember, we had Harold Park as the iconic track in Sydney, a bit like Moonee Valley was.
How good was
very tight track.
800-metre track. but
Yep.
right in the heart of Sydney, Steve. I mean,
Yep.
it was in a suburb called Glebe, which is essentially like Jollymont.
The land is too valuable there
Well, they
in
ended
Sydney.
up selling it, didn't they?
Yeah.
They ended up selling it, made a fortune out of selling the land as a development site. But now Menangle is at least 3/4 of an hour to an hour drive west of Sydney, and the same thing happened with harness racing in Victoria because they stopped racing around about 11, nearly 12 years ago now at Moonee Valley. It was in early 2010 that they stopped. But in mid-2009, they started having meetings at Melton. And Melton, again, on a good day, is a good 3/4 of an hour's drive from the city. So it's a similar sort of thing. The land is a lot cheaper, so they obviously bought a bit of land quite cheaply and built the track. But it does require anyone who wants to actually physically attend the races to do a fair bit of travelling to get out there. But in my opinion, the best track in the country, without any shadow of doubt, is probably the only track that's still right in the heart of the city. And
Gloucester Park?
Gloucester Park in Perth.
I thought you'd say that, yeah.
And it has the most magnificent track, beautifully manicured lawns. They call it the Ribbon of Lights down there. And the views across the back straight are to Crown Casino, Optus Stadium. You see all of the lights and the colours of Optus Stadium on Friday nights, especially when there's a football match going on down there. But just fantastic venue, Gloucester Park. And it's right opposite the WACA, the West Australian Cricket Association ground, which we all know and love as the WACA. That's right across the road, literally, from Gloucester Park.
Yeah,
in fact, the cricketers, I think, back in the day, Steve, they used to, play their test match during the day, and then they'd head off to Gloucester Park on the Friday night.
Yeah, that was
across the road.
That was a more social era, wasn't it?
It was indeed. I think Dennis Lilly and Rod Marsh might have had a few nights over at Gloucester Park back in the day.
Yeah, don't worry. I think the people of Perth and WA would have made a little day out of it too. Cricketing the crowds, whether it be the WA side or the Aussie side, or anything along those lines, and then head over across the road to Gloucester Park to watch the trots.
Yeah, exactly right. No, it's a good fun night out. I've got to tell you, it's a great fun night at Gloucester Park. They've got terrific grandstands there, dining facilities. And just it is the most pristine track to experience as a race goer. But anyway, I hope it continues to survive and thrive in Western Australia. Rightio, we'll move on and talk a little bit of golf. Stephen, we have some Australians who took part in the tournament last week. We thought that one or two of them had a bit of a chance of finishing at least, if not winning the tournament, at least in the top 10. How did they end up travelling in that particular tournament last week?
Yeah,
the Houston Open, wasn't it?
Yeah, as we said, Vince, not as well as we would have liked. Nonetheless, the focus has now moved to the play. Well, essentially, it's the playoffs for the European Tour in Dubai, which is our main tournament.
Yeah.
Also, the RSM Classic in Georgia.
Yes.
Sea Island. So, no real notable Aussies playing. Well, we've got some Aussies playing, but no real notables doing very well at all there. With Taylor Gooch leading with one round to go.
What's his score?
He's at 16 under. He's got a 3-stroke lead from Seamus Power, the Irishman. So
yes,
no Aussies really anywhere near in contention there. The major
I
tournament.
believe Cameron Smith's at about 9 under, but that's still seven shots behind the leader, isn't it? So you don't expect he'll be able to win it, but maybe he can sneak into the top 10 if he's tied for 12th at the moment.
Yeah, he could. There's a lot of players there. I mean, you always come at me every week with these optimistic. I suppose
I'm always an optimistic person, Steve. I want to see the Aussies get up and win.
they are so good. These players, Vince. It's so hard to come from so far back on the US tour. But look, you are right. There's a possibility. You've got some really good players.
As a matter of fact, Cameron Smith was our highest place getter last week in the Houston tournament as well, I believe. So
that's right. But you've got Webb Simpson, Scott Stallings, just to name a few players there that are very, very notable. And Cameron Smith's at 9 under. You're really going to need. He's going to need to shoot the lights. Probably the best round of the tournament to win. But I admire your optimism. Moving to the Dubai event, which is essentially the final event for the DP World Tour Championship in Dubai, which is their end of season. We're live at the moment through 14 holes, really tearing the course up. Is Matt Fitzpatrick from England. He's at 14 under, tied with Rory McIlroy, who's even for the day. So McIlroy's still got quite a lot more holes to play. So there's those par fives on the back nine where we'll probably be able to make up some ground. But Fitzpatrick can set a number in the clubhouse and watch them all potentially try and catch him. Going further down the list.
So he's already finished his round.
No, he's through 14 holes. So
14.
McIlroy's only through 8 holes. So essentially, he's got 6 more holes to play to birdie over there. Jason Scrivener is best Aussie at the moment. Well down the list at tied 23rd at 7 under par.
Yeah.
Lots of great names in this one. I mentioned Rory McIlroy, but Paul Casey, Colin Morikawa from the States, Ian Poulter, just to name a few. So a really, really good field. And as soon as I'll get off speaking with you gentlemen, I'll be going to watch the closing holes.
Yeah, well, it looks like Matt Fitzpatrick's at 15 under at the moment, and McIlroy's on 10 under. I can tell you that Colin Morikawa is at 12 under as we speak. So,
sorry, you've updated your scores. Sorry, Vince, you're right. I'm just updating. Yeah.
No, that's all right. I'm just watching it live on KO at the moment, and
okay.
Even McIntyre's going for a birdie right now, and he's 13 under. So, they're beautiful looking courses in it. It actually amazes me that a place like Dubai, which is just arid desert, can produce a golf course like this. I mean, how do they actually construct a golf course of this nature?
So they fly the turf in from England. They've got.
But how does it survive the climate and the conditions? You can fly in the turf, but I'm just amazed at how they keep it all going.
They've got irrigation systems. They've got all the water that they have to pump onto the golf course. If you do see off the course, though, it's quite arid. If you go into the rough, but there's no expense spared. It's put it this way: if you're running, if you're at the local golf club,
you reckon there's a bit of money in those oil-rich nations like the United Arab Emirates, do you? What gives you that idea, Steve?
If you're at the local golf club in Melbourne and you're wanting your course to be maintained like that in the middle of summer, the fees and the membership subscriptions would be a lot more than 3,000 or 4,000 per year, you'd be looking at in excess of 50,000 to keep a course like that. It's amazing.
How about you, Beachy? Do you like playing golf?
I tell you what, mate. The only thing that's probably good, the only part of golf that's probably good for me is my putting game, and not much else.
Really, that's usually the part of the game that most of us golf enthusiasts actually struggle with, is the putting side of things. But anyway,
yeah, well, I can't send the ball far off a tee, boys. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, yes, no, it is a great looking tournament, and there's obviously a lot of money on offer there at Dubai. So we'll get a report next week on who eventually won this tournament. But sounds like there's a fair bit at stake there.
Lots at stake.
All right. Well, let's finish off on golf and move to our final sport that we like to discuss on a weekly basis, and that is, of course, the round ball game of soccer. And we've had a fair bit of news in the last 24 hours, haven't we? Big upset result in the English Premier League last night, with Watford beating Manchester United 4-1. Who would have thought that would happen?
Yeah, and essentially sealing the fate of the manager, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer there. Already all the knives are out.
The David Teague of Manchester United.
Dead man walking for many.
He finally got the same treatment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, but of course, with so many managers falling victim to poor performances so early in the season, now where are Manchester United going to get their next manager from? Who's going to leave a club, especially to go and? I mean, it's a coveted job managing Manchester United, but you're going to have to leave a club where you're probably already successful or have plans for success for that season and move. They're going to need to throw absolutely the kitchen sink at that next manager.
I'll tell you, my son happens to be a real soccer enthusiast, and I asked him who he thought would end up managing Manchester United, and he pulled out a name that I thought had some merit, and that's the former Real Madrid manager and former French soccer star Zinedine Zidane.
That's the same horse that won at Ballarat, Vince.
Not quite, but yeah, Steve. It wasn't quite called Zidane.
I know. But there may be an omen there. That's what where I was going. But yes,
because he's not currently managing anywhere, is he?
No, and he's had some really good. Most top players aren't always great managers, but he's had huge success in the past, and he's got really good pedigree. And that's the strongest rumor at the moment, that it's going to be him. What a great player he was, though. Remember those.
Do great players always make great coaches, though, Steve?
Well, he agreed.
Isn't that the big question that's being
asked an exception,
at the Carlton Football Club right now? Do great players make great coaches?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question, but I think he's an exception, and he has had success in the past in Europe. So.
And we've of course seen the very first match that Steven Gerrard, the former champion Liverpool captain, has taken charge of Aston Villa, and he's had a winning start to his managerial career.
And that was at home as well. So no better place to do it than in front of your home fans at the mighty Villa Park.
So what was that score in the end last night?
2-0.
2-0 over
Brighton Hove Albion.
Over Brighton, who have actually been playing pretty good football most of the season so far. So, do you want to give us a quick wrap of the English Premier League round? Of course, the previous week we had the international round, and we'll quickly discuss the Australian game against China, because we knew that we had a 0-0 draw against Saudi Arabia the previous week, which we discussed at last week's show. But we also had a draw against China during the week. We'll discuss that shortly. But let's let's go back to the English Premier League.
Yep. So I'll just
It was the
quickly
start
run
of the
through
next
results.
round last night. So what are the results we've got so far?
So yeah, because I've got it in front of me. Chelsea.
I'm sorry, I thought Steve might have had them. That's all right.
Oh, yeah, I've got them. Go.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Steve. Chelsea beat Leicester City on the road at the King Power Stadium 3-0.
Yep.
Chelsea were pretty dominant there. Yeah, nothing huge there.
Well, they've gone to the top of the ladder, haven't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, they have. As we already touched on, Aston Villa beats Brighton Hove Albion. That was at home. Then there were a couple of games that were some absolute corkers starting at 2 a.m. in the morning, unfortunately. But anyway, they were both 3-3 draws between Burnley FC and Crystal Palace at Turf Moor.
Yep.
Followed by Newcastle United playing Brentford FC, one of the newly promoted sides from the Championship. Another 3-3 draw. You would have had your money's worth if you went to either of those games, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
We then go to Carrow Road, Norwich City 2-1 over Southampton. As we already touched on earlier, Watford taking a big stake out for Ollie, of course, at Manchester United at Vicarage Road 4-1. Wolverhampton Wanderers beat West Ham 1-0 at the Molineux.
Bit of an upset there too.
Yeah, pretty much. And Liverpool FC treating Arsenal like they were a training run 4-0 at home to Anfield after Arsenal had pretty much had a bit of a run on. So that was pretty crazy there. Now, there are 2 games to come through tomorrow morning. We'll start with Tottenham versus Leeds United. That's at 3:30 in the morning at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. And then our Toffees, Everton FC, are away to Manchester City at the Etihad.
And do you know what? Not that I'm promoting gambling here, but do you know what the price is for Everton to beat Manchester City at Etihad Stadium is?
I'm guessing it's close to $10.
$16.
Jesus! Put a fiver on that.
Manchester City's $1.16 to win, and we're $16 to win.
By the way, guys,
I don't think we're very. I don't think we're very big chance to win. I'd be very happy with a draw at that stadium.
No, I would too, but I'm not going to lie.
$7. By the way, $7.50 for the draw. So there you go.
Jesus. Although I'm not going to lie, I'd love a win over them. But
wouldn't that be good?
Said, we're not promoting gambling here.
No.
So I will be saying gamble responsibly.
That's right.
Don't chase your losses, and please
put your house on it. Everton to win, $16. Get on.
But yeah, please make sure that you.
I'll be the Mick Malloy of the show if you want, Steve.
You might be able to get better than $16 depending on where you shop, Vince.
Exactly.
Who knows?
You never know. I'll be happy with $16. I'll be just happy for Everton to win. Anyway,
man, I'd take $16 every day of the week. But like I said, we're not promoting gambling here. Don't chase your losses. Know when to walk away.
No, of course not. Anyway, so that's the round so far in English Premier League. Seeing it's not finished, it's probably not relevant to go through the ladder. But I think we can mention the top 4 anyway, because they're the 4 Champions League positions, and they're currently held by Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, who can overtake Liverpool if they beat Everton this morning, and West Ham rounds out the top 4 with Arsenal just outside of it. Manchester United back in 7th position and have just sacked their manager. So it'll be interesting to see who they put in.
Vince, I think the bottom 3 are also need to be mentioned here.
Yes, we can do that too.
Yeah, because obviously you've got the promotion relegation battle, but more importantly, there's a couple of stories here. Norwich have had another win with their new manager, Dean Smith,
Yes.
after they sacked their previous manager after winning.
Yeah.
So they looked like they were absolute certainties to be relegated. Now they're one win away from avoiding the drop zone.
That's right. It's still early.
So they're
It's still only 12, 13 games into a 38 game season. So things can change dramatically from here.
Well, that's the logic, though. That's why they sack managers so early. They think they've got more time to make those changes. But more importantly, the big story here, Newcastle United, 6 points from 12 matches.
Yeah,
now,
only 6 draws. They have not won a game in 12 games.
So we know that potentially they could be the richest club ever not to be playing First Division football if they're relegated. But we do also know that within their new owners making them essentially the richest club in the world, they will be throwing absolutely everything at it in the January transfer window to try and salvage what they can from the season.
Save the furniture, as they say.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Newcastle is currently last, as you said, with only 6 points, being 6 draws out of their first 12 games, and obviously the other 6 were all losses. Norwich has gone up a notch, so 12 games now, 2 wins and 2 draws, so they're on 8 points. Burnley have only had the 1 win from their first 12 games, also 6 draws, so they're on 9 points. And then Leeds United is only 1 place above that relegation battle, so 11 points for Leeds from 11 games. So they play Tottenham this morning. Wouldn't they love a win to catapult them about 3 or 4 places up the ladder? But if they happen to lose against Tottenham, well, then they're precariously placed just above the relegation zone at the moment.
Yeah, they're on the edge if that happens, depending on the other results.
Yeah. If you're a Leeds supporter, as long as you beat Manchester United, I think that's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want to get relegated, of course. But
no, of course not.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Well, in the other leagues, you've got the Spanish La Liga, and my team Sevilla has gone to the top of the ladder. Funnily enough, not after a win. They actually drew 2-2 with a side called Alaves, and which are a mid-tables top side at best. So it was a bit disappointing. But 2-2 took them to 28 points and first position on the ladder on goal difference. Although Real Madrid, who are currently third, are only 1 point behind them and have a game in hand. So if they win that game, they will then retake the lead at the top of the ladder. So at the moment, it's Sevilla on 28, Real Sociedad on 28, Real Madrid on 27, and Atletico Madrid, another power team, on 26. Outside the top 4, which automatically get an opportunity at the Champions League, by the way. So outside of those, you've got Real Betis, which is another team based in Sevilla, on 21. And surprisingly, Barcelona, a team that you'd normally expect to see in the top 4, if not the top 2, is currently in 6th position on 20 points. So it'll be interesting to see whether they can regain some form and get back into the top 4. In the relegation spots down the bottom, you've got Elche on 11 points, Levante on 7, and Getafe on 6. And they're looking, like they really need to do something severe to get out of the relegation. The Italian Serie A, for those Italians out there that love their football. By the way, the Italians are, can you believe, Steve, have missed out on automatic qualification yet again for the World Cup.
A draw with Northern Ireland. It's like deja vu against Sweden last year, isn't it?
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah. So they'll have to go through.
On the last World Cup, they look like they could miss out on this next World Cup. But in the meantime, they won the Euros about 4 or 5 months ago.
And to put it into perspective, football is such a religion in Italy that It's almost a national day of mourning when they missed out on the last World Cup, and the shame it brought on the country, and
That's for sure.
So they would not want this to occur, albeit with the memories of the Euros, that they'll be quickly erased if they can't even qualify for the World Cup.
That's true. Well, in the Italian Serie A competition, Napoli is on top on 32 points with a game in hand. Milan are also on 32 points, but they've played one more game. And in fact, the game they played was against my favourite team, Fiorentina, which is based out of Florence. And Fiorentina beat them 4-3 last night in a fantastic game, 7 goals scored. So Milan happened to lose that one last night. Inter Milan, their crosstown rivals, are also up in the top 4, but they're 7 points behind them on 25. And Atalanta is on 25. Outside the top 4, yet again, by the way, those teams all make it through to the Champions League. If they finish in the top 4. Just outside that is Lazio in 5th on 21 and Fiorentina on 21, as well as the team that you'd normally see up in the top 4, Juventus, also only on 21 points. So, they need to really turn things around at Juventus to get back up to the top 4, don't they?
Absolutely, and not to mention Roma as well. Just behind.
Roma's down in 8th on 19
and
points.
Lazio.
Lazio's 5th on 21.
And also, when you look at the relegation there, Sampdoria, formerly a huge club in Italy, fighting for their lives down there.
In the relegation spots.
2 wins and 3 draws from 12 matches.
Yes, and they are in the relegation spots with Genoa just above them on goal difference. But, you've got Salernitana on 7 points in 19th and Cagliari last on in 20th position and last on the ladder with only the 1 win. They're only on 6 points. So, I think, Juventus, I think, something's not quite right there at Juventus. I suppose they're trying to get over the loss of Cristiano Ronaldo, who went to Manchester United. So often when these teams are so heavily reliant on one player to do well, and that player then leaves, it's amazing how some of them do struggle with that.
They'd still be laughing, though, at what's going on at United, though, secretly, wouldn't they?
Well, to some extent they would. But, I mean, United's also in 7th position. So whether it's Juventus in 7th or United in 7th, they're both in 7th, aren't they? The only one who's gone to a team that's absolutely blitzing is the next league I was going to talk about very briefly, which is the French league, PSG, which, of course, has Lionel Messi playing for them. They are 12 points ahead of their next rival. So, it's hard to see them not being on top of that league for the whole year. PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, 12 wins from 14 matches, only the 1 draw and the 1 loss, a goal difference of plus 18, 37 points. The next team on the ladder is on 25 points. So it's just almost the lay down misère right now.
So, seeing as we're going through all the leagues, Vince,
we're not going through. That'll be it now. That's
Bundesliga. No, but you're not going to. No Bundesliga. I thought we're doing whole of continental Europe if you want. Yeah.
Well, I'll give you the German Bundesliga, my favourite team, purely because it's based in Munich, and that's where BMW comes from. Bayern Munich is on top of the ladder on 28 points. They do tend to finish on top of the ladder most years.
They do.
They're currently on 9 wins and 1 draw from 12 games. Just the 1 point ahead of Borussia Dortmund, who are a very competitive unit. And they have a guy called Haaland playing for them at the moment, who's a real star.
Gone.
9 wins and 3 losses from their first 12 games. They're on 27. SC Freiburg on 22 and Bayer Leverkusen on 21. They round up the top 4.
All right. And just quickly,
did you want to make any comment on the German Bundesliga, Steve, or were you just trying to rustle my feathers?
No. I was rustling your feathers, but generally it's the two heavyweights of Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund there.
Oh, you mean the teams with the most amount of money tend to finish at the top of the ladder? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, they have a different own. Well, it's interesting you say that. They have a different ownership structure though in German football. The members actually own the clubs.
Isn't that interesting?
The season tickets are a lot cheaper as well. It is very much a people's game.
Yeah.
But they do have a lot of money nonetheless, and they do very, very well in Champions League. They're always up to the semi-finals almost every year, if not in the final.
Well, just a quick report on the Champions League, because, of course, this is made up of all of the best teams of each league every year. In Group A, at this point, after 4 matches played, and, of course, each of these groups have to play 6 matches. So each of the 4 teams in a group plays the other 3 teams twice. So, therefore, 6 matches. So far, they've only played the 4 matches, but Manchester City is on top of Group A with 9 points, and Paris Saint-Germain is on 8. It looks like they're pretty safe. The next team's on 4. In Group B, you've got Liverpool on 12 points. They've won all 4 of their matches so far, so they will definitely make it. It looks like there's going to be a battle for the second position between Porto, which is one of the bigger teams in the Portuguese league, and Atletico Madrid, which is a pretty significant team, a very powerful team in the Spanish La Liga, which actually won. They've won a couple of different premierships in La Liga in the last 10 years or so. So they're on 4 points. So Porto on 5 at the moment, Atletico Madrid on 4. It'll be a battle between those two as to who makes the other spot in Group B. Group C, you've got Ajax, 12 points. Again, won all 4 of their matches, so they won't miss out. Borussia Dortmund's on 6, and Sporting Lisbon, another powerful team in the Portuguese league, they're also on 6. So that'll be a battle between the 2 of them. Group D, Real Madrid's on 9 points. Hard to see them missing out, but it's still possible. They've won 3 of their 4 matches. Inter Milan's on 7. They're currently in 2nd. And there's a team called Sheriff Tiraspol. Not sure what league they're from, but they're on 6. So they've still got a chance of making the top 2.
From, if you just hold on, Vince, I can probably tell you that because I had to look them up a little while ago. Is this
Sheriff Tiraspol? Where's that from?
This is the same side that actually knocked off Real Madrid in the Asian Champions League. Would you believe it?
Oh, there you go. Wow.
They are from Moldova.
Where's that?
Moldova.
Sheriff Tiraspol?
Yep, they're from Moldova.
Moldova? Where's that?
Europe.
Okay. I'll do some more research on that next time. Group E, you've got Bayern Munich on 12 points. Again, they've won all 4 of their matches. They won't miss out. The other 2 spots are being battled between Barcelona on 6 points and Benfica on 4 points, which I believe is a Swiss team. In Group F, you've got Manchester United and Villarreal on top on 7 points each, and the Italian team Atalanta on 5. So, again, there's no guarantee of any of those teams making it, but at the moment, Man United and Villarreal are on 7 points each and currently hold the top 2 spots. Group G, you've got a team called Red Bull Salzburg, Steve. I think they're an Austrian team by the sounds of that.
Yeah,
they're on top of Group G on 7 points. Sorry?
They're not a popular team. The Red Bull owners are not liked by the rank and file football fan because they come in and buy a team in a lower division.
And they even rebrand them, don't they, with the
That's
Red
right.
Bull logo and everything.
Yeah.
A bit like the way they've done it in Formula One.
Absolutely. It's the sad part about modern football, as the purists would say.
Yeah. And they're on top at the moment on 7 points. And Lille from the French league, they're on 5, together with the German team Wolfsburg on 5. And Sevilla is on 3. So with 2 matches to go, all 4 teams could still make the top 2 positions. Sevilla need to get a hurry on, though. They've only drawn 3 games out of 4 and they lost 1. So they need to get a couple of victories now in those last 2 matches, definitely. In Group H, which is the last of them, you've got Juventus on 12 and Chelsea on 9. And they look like being the 2 because the next team is on 3 points. So they've pretty much got the top 2 positions sewn up in Group H of the Champions League. So it's all hotting up. Once we've established the top 2 teams in each group, we'll have 16 teams and they will play. Again, they'll be drawn to play each other. And it's a knockout round from after that, isn't it? 16 becomes 8 in the quarterfinals. 8 becomes 4 in the semi-finals. And then eventually you'll get the final 2 teams to play off in the final. So, and that won't happen until May. So there's still a fair bit of time to go. There's still a good round about 6 months to go before we see the Champions League final. So that's the Champions League, Steve and Chris. Pretty much done and dusted.
Fantastic. Just quickly before, we'll just quickly touch on the A-League, which is close to home, because we've just had round 1 complete.
Yes, go for it, Chris.
So the first game of the season, Melbourne City beating Brisbane Roar 2-1 at Amy Park. That's pretty expected considering Melbourne City won the title this year. This season just gone. It was a great win for the boys in blue against the side that sits in the green and black in Geelong. Melbourne Victory beat Western United at the Cattery, as some might call it, or GMHBA in Geelong. The Sydney Derby finished in an unfortunate 0-0 draw because usually East Sydney and West Sydney, that gets quite intense. So unfortunately, there was a draw there, 0-0. Perth Glory didn't quite get the chance to defeat Adelaide United, 1-1 there. The F3 Derby went to the Central Coasters, the Central Coast Mariners against Newcastle Jets in Newcastle. So a nice little win there for them.
How many police were called to the scene? We talked about the Gosford-Newcastle rivalry last week, didn't we, Steve?
Yeah, we did. It's a bit of a rivalry.
The Novocastrians to be too happy with a 1-2 defeat against Central Coast yesterday.
It's almost been a turn up for the books every time these teams have played. They beat each other away from home each time. So, the Gosford team heading north and winning in Newcastle was a turn up for the books, but nonetheless, pretty wet weather right across that sort of Sydney, Newcastle area. So those games did have a fair bit of impact by the weather.
And that's exactly what happened to Campbelltown Stadium, because as a result of that, if you hadn't seen the pictures for the pitch at Campbelltown, they literally had to relocate that game from Campbelltown to Newcastle for MacArthur FC against Wellington Phoenix, and that finished 1-1 as well.
There you go. So there's 12 teams in the A-League. So therefore, six matches took place. 3 of them were victories and 3 of them were draws. So the 3 teams that have a win are Central Coast Mariners, Melbourne City, and Melbourne Victory.
Yep.
My favourite team. And of course, Melbourne Victory won over the Western United team in a Melbourne derby yesterday.
Obviously, it's a Melbourne derby of sorts. It's a battle over the bridge or the M1, depending on what you call it. Now, they'll play at Geelong until their stadium at Tarneit is built. So that's going to be a little while yet. But from the pictures I've seen, there was a strong contingent, as per usual, by our supporters, making the trip down to Geelong and making themselves heard, which is always fantastic to see.
Very good.
So we'll just quickly touch on the games that are coming up. Western United are at home to Perth at Amy Park. Wellington Phoenix are at home to Central Coast at Wynn Stadium in Wollongong. So I think they'll use the red kit for that, I think.
Yep.
Then we've sort of got a Sydney derby of sorts again. Sydney FC versus Macarthur FC at Nestrata Jubilee Stadium in Cogra. The Sydney have been playing there while the new SFS is being built. Adelaide are hosting Melbourne City at Coopers. The Victory are hosting the Brisbane Roar at Amy Park on Sunday. And Western Sydney Wanderers stay home at CommBank Stadium to the Newcastle Jets.
Very good, Beachy. Thank you for that comprehensive analysis, and also for pointing out the forthcoming games that are coming up there in the A-League. And guys, again, thanks so much for your time tonight. It's been a lot of sport to talk about. And a great topic to discuss, of course, with the resignation of the captaincy, at least, of Tim Payne in the Australian cricket team during the week. Plenty coming up, of course. This coming week is the start of what in AFL? Do you know what's coming up?
The draft.
Yes, the draft.
The national draft. So that should be big news for footy fans. We'll talk a lot more AFL next week, no doubt. And, of course, as Carlton fans, and I'm sure the Carlton audience will be keen for us to discuss the various draft picks that have taken place. Not that Carlton's got a very big say in the draft this year. I think, what's our first pick, 25?
25.
Vince,
yeah.
Vince, you'll have the same.
64 and 82, I think, is the other two.
Yeah, 82 may not get used, but because they've got a lot of the picks may go up only to 60 this year. But the typical sayings will get rolled out. Oh, we're so happy we've got a beauty here. We didn't think he'd be available at this late in the draft. He ticks all the boxes, all the psychometric testing and everything.
Yes.
You know, or
little bit like they did that on David Teague, as they were giving him the job, saying he's never been more ready to coach.
Yeah. He was injured at underage footy, but you know, we believe we've got a first round draft pick at pick 50. All the sayings will come out, and then the YouTube highlights of their under 18 games will then come out as well.
No doubt. I'll tell you one thing that'd be funny is when we delist players every year or we offload them to other teams, to replay what we said about them when we recruited them, and then to show the announcement, you know, Carlton has delisted this player and that player and that player. Oh dear. It's all about pumping up the positivity, isn't it, eh? Pumping up the expectation and feeding the hopes and dreams of Carlton supporters. Oh well, we all want to believe that we're going in the right direction. Let's hope that Carlton is going to go in the right direction after this draft and get some decent players in that can add to our squad. Certainly, I'll be interested to see who we pick up at 25. Anyway.
Yeah, I think
we can still get good. You can still get good, very good players well into the 20s and 30s and even in the 40s at times.
Yep.
But anyway, that'll be interesting. Beachy, thanks again for controlling everything in the control room. Any other comments or questions that we received during the show?
No, it's been pretty dead on the comment front, but that's
Righto.
okay. You will sometimes have that from time to time.
Yeah.
We'll just move on to the next one, I think, depending on
Terrific.
what happens.
Steve, again, thanks for your time tonight, mate, and have a good week. And we'll discuss the AFL draft next week and any other topical issues that might come up that we can debate this time next week.
Thanks, Vince.
Have a good week, and to everyone out there watching, thanks for watching our show and supporting it. Don't forget to get onto YouTube, like and subscribe, or on our Facebook page in the blue corner. Until then, we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
See you guys.